University bets were seven of them. We just got acquainted ourselves with four. So we've got three more to go. Welcome back to Jaren's Lit World. So this is the part 3 of the University Bits edition. I will be wrapping up with that topic today. We saw four of the University Bits. We went through their major work, some interesting features about their writing, and we've got three more in our list, and we will, explore through their works today, and then we will wrap up with the University Bits. So the next University Bit on our list is Christopher Marlowe. This is a very familiar name for most of the literature students because he has written some seminal works or some very important plays which stands on a par with Shakespeare. And his name has been found in relation with many of the plays of Shakespeare as well. So he holds a very unique position as far as literature of the 16th century is concerned. But here today we will be looking at Christopher Marlowe only in relation to this particular group as the university wits. But I truly believe that Christopher Marlowe is somebody to be studied, individually. He has produced a mammoth collection of plays, a mammoth collection of characters who are still alive for most of the readers. So I thought I'll be doing a separate video on Christopher Marlowe himself, but today we will just go through some of his major works, some mainstream works by Christopher Marlowe. So to begin with, there is a nickname given to Christopher Marlowe. He is popularly known as the father of English dramatic poetry, and that is because of the reason that he employed the blank verse. Now, the blank verse was introduced into English literature by the Earl of Surrey. Now, after Earl of Surrey introduced this, it was Christopher Marlowe who took it to another level. Like he propagated blank verse in his place, and after a point of time, we see Milton also doing the same thing. So, in the 16th century, Christopher Marlowe pioneered blank verse in his place, and that was the reason he was given this particular title. We will just look at one of his major work, that is Tamburlaine the Great. Now, this particular play, it is one of the critically acclaimed plays by Christopher Marlowe. It also comes under the category of revenge tragedy. Now, in Tamburlaine the Great, what we see is that Tamburlaine, the person as such, he holds a very central position in the plot, but he degrades, right? Because of his some character flaws, he degrades, and there are a lot of problems that comes to face in his life. His house is eventually turned into a nunnery. His daughters are all raped. So we go through a various range of problems in this particular play. But the plot as such, though it evokes fear and pity as revenge tragedies or tragedies as such are to produce, but Tamburlaine the Great does have a very good, strong plot to add to it. Then the next important play is Jew of Malta. Now this also comes under the very same category, and the names that I have given in the red color are two prominent characters from this particular play, Abigail and Ithamore. Now, Abigail and Ithamore are holds very central position as far as this play is concerned, and another important thing is that this particular plot or this particular character, the Jew in this particular play, has been an inspiration to one of the plays by Shakespeare, and that play is none other than Merchant of Venice. Now, in this play, The Jew of Malta, another important thing to remember is that the preface of the play is spoken by Machiavelli. Now, Machiavelli is also another important character, right? He has been a very important creation, or he is considered as one of the major rulers that we have seen in history. So, Machiavelli speaks the preface in this particular play, and that also adds to the depth of the plot or the seriousness of the topic that is being concerned here. All right. The Abigail refers to the daughter of the Jew, and Ithamore is a servant. And Abigail eventually has to run away from the place due to the problems that her father has created. All right. So I'm just giving you these names that nowadays in the UGC NET exam and all other competitive exams, if you take, you can see that they give you a number of characters and then ask you to spot them in the play. So I think that these names are important, so I'm just mentioning them here. Now, the third play in our list is Edward II. Edward II is a pioneer in many ways. First of all, this was the first history play written in English literature, and this also comes under a revenge tragedy. So Edward II traces the life history of the King Edward II. Now there are a lot of aspects related with this plot. Like you can see repercussions of this particular history happening at a later time in the history of English literature. I mean, and also in the social history of England. The central point being that the emperor or the ruler is the ruler is being opposed by the people because of a character flaw, because of his the moral problems that the people point out in the ruler. The moral problems that is pointed out here is that the king is a gay. He engages in a gay relationship with two men. First of all, his first partner was named as Gaveston, and when people came to know about this illicit relation of the ruler, it was considered as an illicit relation at that time. Gaveston was killed. After Gaveston was killed, the king finds for himself another partner, and his name is Despenser. After this, the king is imprisoned when the people come to know about this, and he dies a very brutal death. He dies at the hands of his people inside a prison, the ruler. Yeah, so based on this portion, that is the death scene of Edward II, evokes a lot of emotions in a for a viewer as well as for a reader. And Charles Lamb, who read this play at a later time, and he wrote a very evoking line, and that begins like this: reluctant pangs of abdicating royalty. The whole quote goes like this: the reluctant pangs of abdicating royalty in Edward furnished hints which Shakespeare scarcely improved in his Richard II, and the death scene of Marlowe's King moves pity and terror beyond any scene, ancient or modern, with which I am acquainted. So Charles Lamb is all praise for this particular play. So I think Edward II is a very good read for all of you who want to, know more about the social history of England. And the final play in our list is Dr. Faustus. I don't think I have to go on saying much about this play, but there is so much to say about this play. Everybody knows, like, everybody has a very vague idea about what this plot line is about the the commitment that Dr. Faustus has with the devil, or the kind of contract that he enters in with the devil. I'll just give you one extra information here, that the source for this play is taken from a German myth which has been documented in the text known as Forstbuch. So that is the source of this particular play, Dr. Faustus. So that is all that I'm going to deal here, because as I said, I want to treat Christopher Marlowe as a separate playwright, and delve deeper into his work. So I think in that video we will take up Dr. Faustus as an individual work and look into some of the major aspects of it. So these are the four major revenge tragedies by Christopher Marlowe. He's written a lot of other works as well. A lot of compiled works um, that he has written along with other major playwrights of his time, especially with the other playwrights of the university wits also. But these four must come to our mind when we refer to Christopher Marlowe. All right. So the next university wit in our list is Thomas Nash. He is popularly known as a satirist and a pamphleteer. So we will look at one of his major work, that is Anatomy of Absurdity. This is the only play that I'm referring to which Thomas Nash has written, because it holds a very seminal position. Now, the Anatomy of Absurdity, it speaks about the contemporary social affairs, but what makes it apart, or what sets it apart, is that it also employs the euphuistic style of writing. Now, euphuistic style of writing was introduced by whom? John Lilly, right? So John Lilly pioneered the euphuistic style, and John Lilly is also one of the university wits. And here we see Thomas Nash working upon that. Now, I said that Thomas Nash also is very important for us, apart from being a pamphleteer or a satirist, is that he has written the first picaresque novel in English literature. Picaresque novel is a novel which traces the life of a rogue, or someone who is socially not acceptable in the society, a socially deviant person. And the first picaresque novel in English was written by Thomas Nash, and it goes by the name The Unfortunate Traveler, or an alternative title is The Life of Jack Milton. And Jack Milton is our hero. Now, this final work, The Choice of Valentine, this is not a play or a prose, but this is a poem. This poem was written by Thomas Nash, and this is a reflection of the relation between Shakespeare and Henry Wriothesley. He was the Earl of Southampton. Now, Henry Wriothesley, or HW, or if you just put it in reverse order, it is WH. And you can see that the whole portfolio of Shakespeare's sonnets are dedicated to a WH. Now, this was one of the theories that was popular, that became very popular about who is this WH. And one major theory pointed towards Henry Wriothesley, who was the Earl of Southampton at that time. And it is in this poem that Thomas Nash says about in a very explicit manner about a sexual relation that could have existed between Shakespeare and the Earl of Southampton. But Earl of Southampton is picturized as the lover of Shakespeare, and this poem is about. It is written in a very poetic manner about the romantic or the love relationship between Shakespeare and Henry Wriothesley in a very fictional manner, in a very poetic manner. So, but the readers of those times clearly understood whom he was referring to. All right, so these are some major works by Thomas Nash. Now we move on to the last university wit in our list, and that is Thomas Lodge. He is popularly known for being a translator. So this is one catchword with which you can describe him. He was an extensive translator. Now, this is a very important play by Rosalind. The reason for being it is that this became an inspiration for Shakespeare's As You Like It. Second one, Katharos. Katharos is not a play, it is not a prose book, but this is a sermon. It was a sermon which was delivered against usury. Now, Thomas Lodge, though he is a translator, he was also a clergyman. And hence, in those times, even the homilies or the sermons that the playwrights preached were also very important. That also gained a lot of popularity. Now, usury is the practice of lending money with interest. And Thomas Lodge was a person who completely opposed this. And that is when he delivered this particular sermon dealing with this particular topic. An Alarm Against Usherers. Again, this is also a prose work, and the dedicatee of this prose work is Sir Philip Sidney. So this again deals with the very same theme that he dealt with in his sermon. Now, finally, we have another major prose work that goes by the name A Defense of Poetry, Music, and Stage Plays. Now, if you relate the first part of the title, A Defense of Poetry, you will be reminded of Sir Philip Sidney. And that is also one of the reasons why I brought in that link, because this particular prose book was also written as a reply to Stephen Gawson's School of Abuse. And this deals with not just poetry, but the aspect of music or songs and stage plays are also taken into consideration. So this is Thomas Lodge, the last of the university wits in our list. So that was University Wits, guys. I think it took about like 3 parts for me to finish the whole topics, but you've still got a lot of work to do, like more reading and research on this topic, and probably you'll come across some other major important works. But what I have dealt here is like their mainstream works, the works which are of importance, the works which most people would know, and that every literature student should know. So I was just, making yourself familiarized with those works. But before we say goodbye for now, I thought I'll just give you a glimpse into what I will be dealing next. So I was thinking of dealing with another group of writers. The Caroline poets were on my mind, but then I thought that maybe I'll just switch away from this pattern that I'm having right now, and I'll deal with something else. So then what came to my mind was, why not take up a work, an individual work? So I'll be coming with one seminal work of literature, and I'll keep that as a secret. We'll see together. We'll see which work that is in the next video. Thank you.